They mocked the royal guard at the firing range, until they discovered he was an elite Ex-SAS Marksman. There is a kind of soldier the British Army puts in the shop window. You have seen him. Tall, perfectly still, bearskin cap sitting straight as a ruler on his head, rifle held at exactly the right angle, eyes fixed on nothing and everything at the same time. He stands outside palaces and guard posts, and he does not move, does not blink, does not give you anything to read. People walk past him and take photos. Children wave at him. Tourists try to make him laugh. To most people, he is decoration. To other soldiers, especially the ones who see themselves as the real deal, he is something slightly worse than decoration. He is a punchline in uniform. James Aldred knew this. He had known it since the day his transfer came through, moving him from the regiment that had defined the last 15 years of his life into a ceremonial posting that, on paper, looked like a quiet retirement. He was 38 years old. He had a slight stiffness in his left knee that came with cold weather. He made tea every morning at 05:30 and drank it standing at his kitchen window, looking at nothing in particular. He did not talk about where he had been or what he had done there. He never did. The joint training day at Bisley came on a Thursday in November, the kind of gray, flat morning that sits on the shoulders like damp wool. Aldred arrived early, the way he always arrived everywhere, early enough to read the room before the room read him. The range was already occupied by a group from the 1st Battalion, 8 of them, fit-looking men in their late 20s and early 30s, who moved through the space with the easy confidence of people who belong somewhere. They had gear bags, they had customized scopes, they had the kind of casual, shop floor expertise that fills a room without anyone trying. Aldred walked in carrying his standard issue SA-80, with no bag, no accessories, nothing extra. He set it down on the bench at the far end, picked up his ear defenders, and began the process of making himself invisible, which was something he had always been good at. He almost managed it. The one who noticed him first was a sergeant named Vickers, broad-shouldered, relaxed in the way that confident people are relaxed, the kind of man who fills space naturally. Vickers looked at Aldred's ceremonial insignia and said something to the man beside him, not quietly enough. "Is that the palace lot? Didn't know they even ran live rounds." A couple of laughs, nothing vicious. The kind of joke that doesn't mean any harm because it doesn't take its target seriously enough to be mean about it. Aldred heard it clearly. He fitted his ear defenders and did not look up. The morning started with groupings at 100 meters. Basic stuff. The kind of exercise you warm up on, not the kind you take seriously. The infantry lads shot well, as expected. Clean groupings, comfortable with their weapons, each one firing with the unhurried ease of people doing something they have done thousands of times. Then Aldred took his position. He fired slowly, methodically, not fast, not with any visible focus or intensity. He completed the exercise with adequate results, the kind of performance that doesn't turn heads, doesn't embarrass anyone, and gives nobody a reason to pay closer attention. Vickers glanced over after checking the targets. "Not bad," he said, in the tone of voice people use when they mean the opposite. Aldred ejected his magazine. He set it down on the bench. Then he crouched and picked up the spent casing from the floor beside his boot. He held it for a moment between his fingers. Just a moment. Then he placed it carefully on the bench next to the magazine. It was the kind of gesture that meant nothing, the kind that most people in a busy room would never notice. Vickers noticed it, filed it under strange, and moved on. After lunch, the range officer moved them to the advanced course. 600 meters. Moving targets. Time pressure. This was where the morning's ease fell away, and the actual work started. 600 meters is a long way. At that distance, you are not shooting at a target. You are solving a problem. Wind speed, breathing, heart rate, the tiny tremor in your hands that you spend years trying to iron out but never completely do. Every variable matters. Everything costs you something. Vickers went first and shot 8 from 10. It was a strong score. He knew it was a strong score. He turned from his position with the small, satisfied expression of someone who has done exactly what they came to do. The men around him registered it with nods and quiet approval. A couple of others followed. Decent scores. Solid, professional work. Then the range officer called Aldred's name. There is a particular kind of silence that happens in a room when people stop talking in order to watch something fail. It is not hostile exactly. It is the silence of expectation, the comfortable certainty that what comes next will confirm what everyone already thinks. The infantry lads went quiet in that way. One of them crossed his arms. Someone else checked their watch. Aldred walked to the position. He lay down. He did not adjust the scope. He did not test the trigger, or shift his grip, or take a breath and hold it dramatically. He lay still, in the way that people lie still, when stillness is not an effort. Not concentration, something older and deeper than concentration, a thing that had been built into him over years, in places that don't appear on tourist maps, through experiences that don't get written up in training manuals. Vickers opened his mouth to say something. The man next to him put a hand on his arm. He wasn't sure why he did it. He would think about that later. Aldred fired. 10 shots. 10 targets. The range officer called them as they fell. 1, 2, 3. There was no rhythm to it. Or rather, there was a rhythm, but it was not the rhythm of effort. It was the rhythm of something that had been made automatic, through repetition so thorough and so long ago, that it had stopped being a skill and become simply a fact about the person doing it. Like breathing, like walking, like the way you can drive a route you have driven 1,000 times without thinking about it at all. 8, 9, 10. 10 for 10. The room was quiet in a completely different way now. Not the silence of waiting for failure. The silence that happens when something lands that nobody was prepared for. Vickers stared at the target results. He looked at them the way you look at a bill that is larger than you expected, reading it twice, hoping the number changes. It didn't change. The range officer was an older warrant officer who had spent most of the session on the periphery, watching without comment. He had the particular quality of experienced military observers everywhere, which is the quality of not being surprised by very much. He walked to the front of the group now. He did not address the group. He looked at Aldred. "We had a man from 22 SAS posted through here about 6 months back," he said. "Good shooter. One of the best I have seen come through this range. And I have been running sessions here for 19 years. He mentioned the best marksman he had served with had transferred to ceremonial duties after a tour. He paused. Said the man's name was Aldred. The room did the maths. It didn't take long. 22 SAS. Special Air Service. The regiment whose address in Hereford is known to everyone, and spoken of carefully. The regiment that selects its people through a process so demanding that most candidates fail before the first week is out. The regiment whose soldiers spend years doing things in places that are never officially confirmed, against threats that most people will never know existed. Vickers was the last one to finish the maths. When he got there, something happened to his face. It was not one expression, it was a sequence, a rearrangement. Like watching furniture shifted in a room you thought you knew well. Aldred was already at the bench by the time the warrant officer finished speaking. He field-stripped his rifle with the same unhurried care he had shown all day. Methodical, quiet, each part placed in exactly the right order. He was not doing it for an audience. He was doing it the way he always did it, which was carefully, because that was simply what you did. When he was done, he put his cap on and picked up his kit. Vickers stood up. He had the look of a man assembling words that kept rearranging themselves. He started to speak, something that began as an apology and was trying to find its shape on the way out. Aldred looked at him, not past him, not through him, at him. For a moment that was neither long nor short. Then he said, "I," and he walked to the door and opened it, and went through it, and it closed behind him with no sound at all. The kind of close that isn't a slam, and isn't a click. Just a door shutting. The way all doors eventually do. Nobody in that room asked where he had been. Nobody asked about Helmand or about the years between then and now. Nobody asked what it had cost him to show up to a training day with a plain rifle and no gear bag and shoot the first exercise slowly enough to seem ordinary. Maybe they understood, by then, why that had been important to him. Maybe they did not. There are men who need everyone in the room to know what they are capable of. They carry it on the surface, announce it in the way they walk and talk and position themselves in a crowd. And there are men who have spent so long being capable of things that they no longer need anyone else to confirm it. Their knowledge of themselves is settled. Finished. It does not require an audience. James Aldred drove back to barracks in the gray November afternoon. He would stand outside a palace gate the next morning, perfectly still, perfectly quiet, looking like nothing in particular. Tourists would take photos, children would wave, and he would be exactly what he had always been. Someone the world consistently underestimated, and who had long since stopped minding.